money comes and goes, right? But your spiritual legacy is leaving them with the stories, with the experiences, with the wisdom that you went through yourself, and giving that as a piece of you to generations, because that will never die. That is forever, right? So I really align with the scripture where it talks about, I think it's Proverbs 13:22, where it says, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And we automatically assume that's money. And while money is important to leave to your children, it's not the only thing. An inheritance is more than that.
Hey there, Ryder, what's going on? Now, before we get into today's episode, I have a question for you. How long have you been sitting on your book idea? If you're tired of thinking about it and ready to actually make progress, join me the last Sunday of every month for my live writing masterclass. Now, this isn't just another class. It's an interactive space where you finally gain some clarity on your book and help you break through some mindsets that are blocking you and get the roadmap to actually start writing. And as a bonus, when you register, you'll get a free 20-minute coaching session with me. Spots are limited. Don't wait. Click the link in the show notes or scan the QR code to sign up. Let's get your book out of your head and onto the page. I'll see you then. Welcome back to another lovely episode of 30 Minutes of Power, TOP, your one-stop shop for all things encouraging, entertaining, and motivating. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're listening. Today's episode is going to bless you. I'm sitting down with an incredible woman of faith, purpose, and power, Meme Mulugeta. Yes, I'm going to say it slow, just so we don't have to say it no more. After 20 years in business and finance, Meme experienced what she calls a divine interruption, and it changed everything. She's now the founder of the one and only publishing, where she helps everyday people turn their God-given message into books that create legacy and impact. Meme, welcome to the show. How you doing today, girl? How you doing?
I'm doing good, doing fantastic, even better for being here. Thank you, Dory.
You're very welcome. So you said that your business began with divine intervention. I love storytelling. Could you take us back to what happened? How did God shift your path from business and finance to launching a publishing house?
Yeah. I'm going to try to condense this story as much as possible because it is a long-winded story. But after I gave my life to the Lord, I rededicated my life to the Lord back in 2023. And I knew God was calling me for something deeper, something that was going to be focused on building his kingdom, but I just didn't know what it was. And I had kept asking the Lord, God, give me creative ideas, give me creative ideas. And it would be crickets, just crickets. I wouldn't hear anything. And I knew I wasn't called to the pulpit, but I knew God called me to do something, right? So it happened that I was attending a 3-day women's conference, and I was just really seeking the Lord, and I was asking him for guidance because I was having issues at my job. After the third day of that conference, I felt like there was a major breakthrough with just with me and him. Like my eyes were more open, and I was just more aligned with what God had me on this earth to do. I didn't know what it was, but I was just more aligned. Prior to that, though, God had asked me to write a book. And I was like, I'm not a writer, God. Like, thank you for this wonderful idea, but that's just not for me, you know? And so I kept being disobedient, and disobedience is delaying what God has called you to do ultimately. So I kept saying, God, give me creative ideas. And one night I was upset, and I said to the Lord, God, just tell me what you want me to do, whatever it is. And I had a dream that night. And in that dream, he came to me and told me to write a book. And I said, okay, Lord, let me sit down. 3 a.m. I woke up and I said, let me write the introduction to this book. And every day after that, I said, Lord, I don't know what you want me to write about, but if you give me topics, I will make this commitment to write before I lay my head to sleep. And so every day for about 14 days, God was just dropping topics, either through people, either through a TV show that I was watching, a coworker. And I was just like, okay, God. And I sat down and wrote that chapter. After I hit my 30th chapter, God said, it's done. Your ministry has started. So now I didn't know what this book was for, but I just said, okay, my ministry started, whatever that means. Fast forward 3-day conference, right? God asked me to sacrifice something really important in my life, and I finally decided to make that sacrifice. I woke up that Monday after the 3 day conference, which was over a weekend, and I just remember standing in front of my closet and I said, God, I'm so sick of this job. Give me creative ideas. And right then and there, while I was looking at my clothes, God put this major download. When I'm talking about, I'm not talking about, I don't know if you ever saw That's So Raven. I don't know if you ever remember this show called That's So Raven. And in That's So Raven, she kind of goes back in time or she sees the future in a split of a moment. That's literally what I saw. God gave me a 10-year blueprint of a business that He wanted me to start. He gave me the details. He told me what He wanted me to do each year, and it happened in less than 5 minutes, to the point where I was overwhelmed because starting a book publishing business has never been a dream of mine. I never said, "Oh, one day I want to start a book publishing business." So I knew it was from God because it was never something that entered in my mind as an opportunity or an option. So 5 days later, I get fired from my job. 5 days later, I get fired from my job, and I ultimately said, "Okay, God, I am going to apply to a new job and do this business while I'm applying." And God said, I want you to focus on this. And He literally closed every door. I have 20 years of uh, financial industry experience. So I'm highly coveted in the industry. Could not find a job. Could not find a job. Like no doors were opening. And I said, in obedience and submission, I said, Father God, if this is what you want me to do, it's yours. I surrender it to you. And I've just been going full force since then.
Amen. There's a lot of parallels between our stories, except I didn't get fired. I fired I guess I unemployed myself. I really, I love that you were open to the idea of embarking on an industry and doing things that not only had you no skill set for,
No,
but
no, man. Here's where this is. Let me tell you this story. And I agree with you. That was probably the hardest 6 months once the business started because I was like, God, why would I do this business? Right. And I kept hearing people used to say, tell me, God doesn't call the qualified, qualifies the called. And I'm like, I get that. But we need to have some transferable skills here, right? We need to have transferable skills. So, learning the industry first and foremost was my first important, like what I need to like dive deep in, right? I needed to know what I didn't know. But what God started showing me over time was you do have certain skills. There may not be in publishing, but I've led teams of over 50 people. I helped businesses grow and scale. I've also been able to lead people, create process, be able to inspire, hope, encourage, coach. So I have these skill sets, but just not in this particular industry. So what was so amazing was God constantly put me in front of experts. Girl, I was at the gym and I was telling my friend at the gym, I said, Girl, I don't know. I just don't get this publishing industry. And I was just speaking out loud to her and laughing about it. Why the woman next to us working out was like an executive to one of the lead publishing. I didn't ask her if I could say her name, so I'm not gonna say her name. One of the lead publishing companies in the DMV, and she was like, "I'll take you under my wing." If that's not God, I don't know what is. If that's not God, I do not know what God. What the? I mean, I was just floored. She answered everything.
outside of this episode, I won't know her name because I'm gonna go to the DMV area because I would love some tutelage personally myself. Listen, I have so many listeners who are entrepreneurs, they're creatives, faith-driven people, in transition, right? Was it and what is it like to build a mission-led business from scratch? And I would say I want to, if you could pinpoint like what kept what kept you going when doubts and obstacles start showing up?
Mm. Um, First of all, it's very difficult. Let me just say that it's not for the faint of heart. I've built other businesses outside of this, and Some failed and some went really well. And I've learned to lean on my own understanding. But doing something that is focused on what God has placed on your heart, you're constantly checking in with Him. You're constantly asking Him, is this right or is this right? Because it's not your business. It's not yours, it's His. So doubt still to this day creeps into my mind through people, through experiences, through situations. And to be honest with you, if I did not spend time with the Lord on a daily basis, speaking to Him, telling Him my frustrations, and having mentors and coaches that believe in this mission as well and believe in what God has called me to do, I don't think I would be sitting here today speaking to you. So you have to understand, you have to build a community around you that supports you, but you also have to consistently lean in and check in on God and make sure that you're doing it His way because it's His mission. 555,000 books where? That's my mission. 555,000 was how? Like that doesn't make any sense. That's crazy. You know what I mean? But with God, all things are possible. And I'm not saying that as like a band-aid, like, oh, with God, all things are possible. I really believe the blueprint that He's created for me can accomplish 555,000 books. But it means that I have to execute in the way He wants me to execute it. So you
There's a
gotta,
second there's a second part of your mission, with the 10 languages.
yeah, 10
Because
languages.
I think people are like, well, 550. I guess maybe you could. I continue. I guess if she divides seven, right? Like they try to do the math, but it's in 10 languages.
Right? 10 different, so 555,000 books, but 10 different languages that will offer these the ability to actually create those books. So by the end of this year, we're launching Spanish. So any Spanish speaker that wants to create a book or any English book that wants to be translated in Spanish can come to us. So the idea is we want to be able to get these books not just to English readers, but to the world and making it accessible to the world. And there, to be honest with you, there's not enough books that talk about something that uplifts, inspires, encourages, transforms, that builds, that entertains, all in one that stirs the soul in other languages. There's just not enough. We see that Amazon has like a ton of books, right? And it's heavily saturated. But when you go and you drill it down to like other countries in other languages, it's very limited. So we want to make that accessible to the world.
I love that. I think probably one of my favorite things about your mission, is how you frame books as legacy. Um, why do you believe that writing and publishing a book is one of the most powerful ways to leave a spiritual or generational impact?
Yeah, it actually ties into a story. So one time, my father, when I first gave it my life to the Lord, my father was calling me and he was just like, my dad is a minister. And he said, like he was discouraged at that. And he said, I just don't feel like I have favor from the Lord. Right now I don't have favor. And I said, well, what has God done for you thus far? You've been following Him for this many years. Come on now. And then he started going through stories upon stories of how God has brought favor into his life. As he was saying these stories, he was freeing himself like, wait, hold up. God did have favor. But when he got off the phone with me, I sat there in silence and I said, whoa, I was going to live the rest of my life never even knowing these things if I had not prompted my father to answer them. And the fact about it is, I believe that because I came from the financial industry and I help people build an inheritance for their children, and I always drilled in their head, you got to leave money, you got to leave money. Money comes and goes, right? But your spiritual legacy is leaving them with the stories, with the experiences, with the wisdom that you went through yourself and giving that as a piece of you to generations because that will never die. That is forever, right? So I really align with the scripture where it talks about, I think it's Proverbs 13:22, where it says, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And we automatically assume that's money. And while money is important to leave to your children, it's not the only thing. An inheritance is more than that. And if we talk about our lives and share our lives to our children and leave that as a legacy, if God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, what he did for me, he will also do for my child, and he will do for others who read my story. So that's the legacy. That's something that will never die.
So you're creating like mini testimonial pamphlets.
Yeah, well, it's not just testimonies,
What
okay?
I'm saying, I'm not trying to like minimize it. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that from the words that you're saying, like God says that the world will know, right, by the power of the blood, right? They will be saved by the power of the
Hmm.
blood and by the word of their testimony. And so if you are intentionally creating a business, you're on mission to ensure that people's testimonies reach far and wide past anyone who can hear the voice, right?
Yeah,
Then that is a
a
book
pamphlet.
of testimonies. I'm just saying.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
I
So,
do.
one thing that I love, and you might be, if not probably the only publishing company that I know that does this. What's up with these financial services to help people afford their books? I want to talk about that because that's not I've had other people with publishing companies. I've had other authors, ghostwriters, people in the industry. And I ain't never seen or heard nobody talking about, oh, you can't afford my services. Let me help you figure out how to afford my services. What? How? What?
Do you think 555,000 books are going to come from all paying clients?
I don't
There's
know. I don't
one thing,
know.
I try to focus on the four prongs of why people choose, why 81% Americans say they want to write a book, but only 3% do, right?
Say
It's
it
either
again. Say it again for the people in the back, because I quote these statistics every day, and people, I swear, they think I'm lying.
the truth. 81% of Americans say they want to write a book, but only 3% do.
And how many
And
actually publish?
ah, here, I don't remember. 1%? Is it 1%? Yeah, 1%. 3%? 1%? That's crazy. That is crazy to me. So I really had to like dive deeper into really understanding the mindset of someone. And I realized it's four things, right? It's time, it's fear, it's money, and it's skill set. Those are the four major prongs, right? So I said, okay, time, I took that away because now we're ghostwriting for you. You don't even gotta write it. Fear, we have book coaching that really focuses on mindset because you can't really move forward unless you change your mindset, right? And then skill set, obviously, once again, I take it away if skill set is a concern, or we'll coach you through writing it yourself, right? And so money was the last piece that I was like, how can I make this accessible? So at first, I tried to make my services as low as possible. But what was happening is now that means I'm attracting editors and ghostwriters that are not quality, right? So I said, okay, I gotta lift this price a little bit. I gotta raise this price. And I said, what can I do for people who can't afford it? And I created sponsor a book, right? So either people who believe in this mission will either help by sponsoring a book for a friend or just a stranger, or I've been applying consistently. I always apply to grants. I'm always looking for free money. I always tell people about my company. So people donate. They donate through this process. And what we have is a very long wait list of people who have created their manuscript. They're not even waiting for ghostwriting services. They created their book, but they don't have the funds to do it. And we're just taking it off book after book, just going through it and helping people publish their book. And I just wanted it to be accessible to everybody and not for them to not have any limitations. And this is what I thought of. And I think it's going pretty well.
I usually don't pause very much because I know how my editor feels about that. I think my brain is trying to wrap around the idea that you thought through all the reasons that someone wouldn't share their story, and then you're actively, and it seems like daily, trying to remove all of those barriers. No, I'm going to tell you this, and I've been in this space for a little bit. Ain't nobody doing that.
Nobody?
No, unfortunately. They'll take payment plans. They'll put you in debt.
Right. Yeah.
But they're not actively looking for money to help you not need to pay them.
Yeah.
So God bless.
Amen.
Why is accessibility so a personal passion for you, honestly? Like,
I don't, I think personally, I've always hit that glass ceiling in my entire life. I've always had this feeling of never being able to push beyond. I knew what I was capable of, but it was like always something always stopped me. And I just said, you know what, for this business, God, you gave this business to me, and the church is accessible to everybody, and you are accessible to everybody. So this ministry, this business needs to be accessible to everybody as well. It's just, I have to keep that. This business is truly for it. It's a ministry before it is a business. We want to make money, don't get me wrong. We want to make money, but at the same time, we want to make sure that these stories come out no matter what. So that's where it came from.
all right, so I have two more questions. What is one of the biggest myths that you hear people believe about publishing, and what's the truth?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I try.
A good question. The biggest myth, I would say the biggest myth had to debunk a few times is no one wants to read my story because the story has already been written. And I believe that, I even said this on my social media just like this week. Why do people keep watching the same romantic movies over and over? Why do they do that? Jory, answer that for me.
I'm so glad you said this. And so here's what people don't know, and I've never divulged this openly. So you're gonna learn something about me right now. Um, I am a diehard rom-com lover.
Me too.
Every Julia Roberts movie that's ever existed, I have on VHS or DVD. I'm not even joking with you. And when she makes a new movie, I have to watch it. And my husband hates this. He hates this so much because for a very long time she was literally playing the same character in every single movie, and so there are so many people like this who play the same character in every single movie. And guess what? I will still go watch it, and I will still go
Yeah,
spend money to see it because it's familiar. It
yeah,
there's this framework that raises up these feelings within us, and we
yeah.
like those feelings. And so whatever package they put it in, whatever characters they put in it, it doesn't matter. Whatever language. I watched a rom-com in French. I don't speak French. I don't know French, but I understood like the whole structure, and so I was able to follow along for the most part. It was a really good movie, but I don't speak French. I don't know French.
Titles, right? Was there subtitles?
It was did I turn them on? That I did, but I don't know if I had my glasses on. I really wasn't caring. Like they're sick. They had such good chemistry between one another. I understood the storyline and the plot. The music was great. The action was amazing. I watched the same movies over and over again, regardless of the language. Um,
Yeah,
because I like the feeling that it gives me. But then again, like the Bible is over thousands of years old, and people still not only read it, they preach it on Sundays or
that's right.
Saturdays or Fridays or
That's
Mondays or
right.
whatever your church got going on. The Torah, the Quran, these are very old books, and they are still being retold over and over again. And so I think your question, why do people watch the same movies over and over again? It's the feeling. And
Yeah.
so the response, I was actually going to ask you that question. What if someone listening was feeling like their story wasn't worth telling because someone's already told it? And I skipped it. I skipped that question because the Lord was like, don't
Yeah.
ask that. And I was like, okay. And then I went to the next question. And then here you are back to that question.
Full
Um,
circle.
right, right. So this, like you said, saying
I
God is
love
in the
that.
midst. I love it. I have written 10 books. I would say of those 10 books, two of them are about something other than God.
Okay. Amen. Okay.
Every other book is about my testimony, how God delivered me from something, or I am retelling stories that other people have told me about how God delivered them from something. Um,
Mm,
and then I have two like just off brand shoot books of like how do busy moms like not go to jail and like keep it together, right? Because I have four small children. I had written a book about mindsets to have that would help foster better relationships between teenagers and their parents.
that's a good
Right.
book.
I thought it was a good book. I thought
Okay.
so. It's
Yeah.
on Amazon. You can go get it. Okay. It's called
Yeah.
Shifting Mindsets. It's great. There are conversation starters in there between teens and parents. But other than those two books, every other book, testimony, God, Jesus, help, solve, remove, overcome. And people buy them. They
Yeah.
buy them. And so yeah, I don't believe people honestly feel that their story isn't worth being told. I think it hinders on one of those other four pillars that you talked about. It's fear.
It is fear.
They're afraid to tell their story. They don't think it's already been told. They're afraid to tell it. And it's 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 either they're afraid to tell it because of the backlash that could come from saying it out loud, or they're afraid to tell it from the feelings that will rise up once they hear it said out loud or once they see it read on a page. Um, I have clients right now. I'm ghostwriting the book and I wrote her book. I wrote the outline for the book and I gave her the synopsis of the book and then I gave her like the scenes of each of the different chapters. And she called me and she's like, "Yeah, I read it and you can't write that." Now, mind you, we are in the beginning stages. So I was like, "Okay, so what do you want me to write then? Because this is what you told me." And she's like, "Yeah, I read it and I didn't realize all of that happened to me.
Oh,
So I don't think we can write all that." I was like, "Okay." But some people, like
yeah.
legit, they've never stopped and taken time to reflect on their life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you begin the writing process. For me, like there are two things I always tell my people, and I would love to hear if there are any like recommendations that you all have before you work with certain people. I know a couple of people have come to me, and as they're sharing with me what they want to write about, they get really choked up, they get really emotional. Um, and my question is always like, have you gone to therapy? Honestly, if the answer is no, I'm like, I can't work with you.
Mm.
One of my first clients, she had she's bipolar. She had an episode during one of our writing sessions. Therapist, she was seeing a therapist. The therapist had to be called, and even after talking to the therapist, the ambulance was still called, right?
Mhm.
Because she was having ideations of self-harm. And so I don't know what you tell your people, but for me, I'm like, I can't write from open bloody wounds.
Yeah.
Me
Uh,
personally, and I therefore will not encourage you to write from open bloody wounds.
yeah.
But we can make some magic from some scars, right? Some stuff that's healed and like, but
Yeah.
open bloody wounds, I don't like it.
I think that I have a few clients that is still in that healing process. And one of the things that we I was very upfront and frank with them about was we may start this book, but it may take a lot longer to finish because you want to maybe end it on a high note that you healed. But sometimes, when I journal every day, and journaling has helped me acknowledge and understand and confront the things that I didn't even want to see for myself. So I was healing through being upfront and honest through journaling. And this in my eyes to them is a way of healing. They are really confronting and acknowledging these things and they're talking about it in that process. And their response to me was, I want to be as honest and authentic as possible. So I want it to be that the first part of the book really came from a place where I wasn't healed. So when I'm ready to create the second part of this book, now they have two sides of the coin, really exposing who I was at that moment.
Mm.
So we're not at the end though. Let me just we're not there, but we're getting there, and you're right. I can't imagine being in that position with bipolar and she wanting to self-harm herself. It hasn't gotten that far, but a lot of crying, a lot of crying on the phone. And it's sad, it's hard. But
I'm
it's a
good with the
ministry.
crying. Yeah, I'm good with the crying. Let the crying come. Like I said, I got four
Yeah.
kids. Let the crying come. Crying, I'm okay with. But yeah, but that was one of my first clients, and so you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
And
for
so
sure.
as I've gotten along in this journey of writing and publishing and all the things, I think probably one of the greatest joys is the freedom that comes from the other side of them holding their book and feeling like I didn't think I could do this, but not only did I
Mm,
do it, but I had the audacity to share it with other people. And instead of all the thoughts that I had of them rejecting me, rejecting my book, rejecting my story, they bought it and
yeah.
they're like telling other people about it and they're posting it. Like when I see people who initially start off with, I don't know, we can't, and then they come to this space of, because what I do for some of my authors, if they're local, I do their book launch party for them. Like I love parties. Parties out there. And let's get it. Let's have some fun. Um, and so to see them invite all their family and friends who are celebrating with them, it's almost like a baby shower. Like, look what we did. Look at that. Look at that. Oh my God, College. What's his name? Like that's the type of vibe that I want to create for
Oh,
people because it is
mm,
a birthing process.
yes, it is. Yes,
It,
it is.
it is painful and scary and unknown, but there's so much joy on the other side. So as we wrap up, if someone listening right now and they know deep down that they've got a message to share, but fear or doubt is holding them back from actually telling their story, what would you say to encourage them today?
Um, I would say I need you to take a moment, really dig deep, and understand that you have the keys to someone's breakthrough. You have the ability to not only just understand that your story and your pain and your struggles and your frustration was meant for you to go through, but it was also meant for someone else to experience and understand and to know that at the end it is going to be okay. So I need you to stop being selfish and start sharing your story to the world because it's not about you. It's not about you. It's about those who really need you. So yeah, please start writing. Thank
I love that. Mimi, thank you. Thank you so much. This is a
you.
dope conversation. I know the listeners are going to be inspired and empowered by your words today. Before we go, how can people connect with you and learn more about the one and only publishing?
Wonderful. You could just go on the number one, and only publishing.com. There's a nice button at the front that say start your book. And when you create a portal, we'll send you a calendar invite for you to schedule a consultation with us and meet with us and discuss what your goals and plans are. You can also follow us on social media. It's the same thing, the one and only publishing on all handles: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So thank you.
You're very welcome. And people, as always, what we say here at 30 Minutes of Power, be an empowered person using your power to empower others. Until next time, people, peace. All right, before we wrap up today, I want to remind you, if a book is on your heart, then this Sunday is your chance to finally take that first step. Join me for a live writing masterclass, and we'll break down the book writing process and get you moving forward from idea to execution. So head over to joryoneal.com/your_story_matters. Thanks for tuning in to 30 Minutes of Power. We hope today's episode inspired you to take action and make a positive change in your life. Remember, your power is meant to empower others. So share this episode with someone who needs encouragement today. We'd love to hear from you, so connect with us on Instagram at 30 Minutes of Power or email us at azironsharpensiron@gmail.com. Until next time, stay empowered and keep empowering others.
30 minutes of power.